Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Versus Stars podcast. How are my loyal listeners? Thank you for your continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. This is a very special episode because Arnold Vosloo boards the mothership. You know him as Imhotep in the Mummy franchise. He now plays Colonel Bach in Condors Nest. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Vosloo. Thank you so much for coming to Versus Stars podcast.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
I'm a big fan of yours, especially my wife wanted to tell me hi as well. She's a huge fan of yours, so Joy Lynn says hi.
Thank you. Hi, Joy Lynn.
So I always start off with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love for acting and who were your earliest influences?
You know, my parents, they were both theater actors way back in South Africa, and I kind of grew up next to the stage, and they tour from small town to small town doing productions. And I always wonder what I would have done had my parents not been actors. It's sort of the more interesting question for me. And I still don't know. I'm 60 years old now. It's still the best gig to be an actor, and I don't want to do anything else, and I can't do anything else. So this is it. This better work out.
It seems like it has been working out. You play Colonel Bach in Condors Nest, which sounds like a fantastic movie. So how do you get involved with the project, and what intrigued you about it?
You know, I got sent a script, first of all, as it always happens. And it always starts with a script. If a script is king, you want to do it, big budget, small budget, no budget, it doesn't matter. If the script is good, creatively, you want to be part of that. And the script was really good. It was funny. It was interesting. It was a sort of Second World War Nazi revenge movie, but it was different, in some way. And so I wanted to be part of it, and then met the writer-director, which is the other important factor. It's always nice to work with writer-directors. They, after all, wrote the damn thing, and they've got all, they've sat in front of that word processor for years. They know all the pitfalls, so they can answer all your questions. And I'd never played a Nazi before. I also never played a Nazi like this, a guy like Colonel Bach, who's so single-mindedly, believes in his cause. He's a man that has no doubt. And that was sort of interesting, because even something like the Mummy, you can argue and say, well, Imhotep, he was in love and he destroys the world because of this woman. Not this guy. This guy just believes in his cause, and that's it. If you don't, screw you.
Well, what I think is fascinating about that is because obviously anyone who knows history knows the Nazis lost in World War II. But even after the loss, he's still a hardcore believer of that ideology, even though it was eventually beaten or defeated in World War II.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. In fact, there's still pockets in the world where that ideology still flames up and is relevant, even here in the States, all over the world. So, that was part of to get back to your original question, that was part of the attraction, just playing a man that has no doubt, just somebody that has no doubt. He's going to say what he says because he believes in what he says. End of story. And it's kind of liberating. Of course, as a person, you don't believe in any of that stuff, but once they yell action and you start saying it and you go to that place, then you're like, okay, yeah, this guy makes sense. Yeah. This is right. I believe all this. So you put yourself in that position and say the great lines that are written. So that was part of the attraction. It was a short shoot, for me at least, about a week there in North Carolina, and it was tough. But they're all tough. Big budget, small budget. All these movies are tough. I'm always amazed afterwards that they turn out decent and that people enjoy them. I remember when we were making The Mummy, Brendan and I, looking at each other, Brendan Fraser saying, hey man, when this movie comes out, we're never going to work again. It's just crazy. It's like mummies popping out of walls and stuff. What the hell? And sure enough, the movies are beloved, so what do we know?
It must be amazing to think that you're playing a character worse than the Mummy.
Yes.
You feel that be the end point.
No, this guy, at least you can say Imhotep, had redeeming qualities. He was a man in love. He wanted to get with his girlfriend. The hell with everybody else. But this Colonel Bach is a whole nother story. He is death personified.
So when you have a character that's so definitely evil, we can all agree, bad guy, definitely a Nazi. How do you find your entryway into that character and get yourself into that mindset of that level of evil?
You sort of do the homework, because I had to speak German, which I don't speak. There was a couple of scenes where I had to speak German in the movie, and I was petrified. And of course, then the accent as well, because the German accent can be a little bit of a caricature. And Phil, the director, wanted me to just to flatten it and just have a hint of a German accent, so it's not a caricature. But you do all that homework, and then you get to that point where you feel comfortable about your homework and what you've done. And then when you're on set, you just let rip. You know, the man says action, and you say the lines, and somehow you also now, because I'm a veteran actor, I've done this before. You know, there'll come a point, maybe the first one or two takes be a little flat maybe or something while you find your way, but by take 3 or 4 you're really into it and you believe what you're saying, whether it's ingredients for a cake mixture or how to rule the world, whatever the lines are. You're into it, you're believing it. So it comes with experience in my case, that you know that moment's going to come where there's you and then where there's the character, and the two just kind of meld, and luckily it happened on this. But it's scary. It's scary to act in a different language and, do a different accent. It's just, it's weird. With the mummy thing, it didn't matter because it's ancient Egyptian. We could make it up. Nobody would know. I could speak gibberish, but a lot of, 90 million people in Europe that speak German. And so I had to be on my toes. Yeah.
So when you're performing in like I said, in a language that you don't know, because you're not as familiar with the wording, how does that affect how you understand the performance?
You obviously know the meaning because Phil had it all translated for us. So I would just, every morning when I walked the dog, I would just listen to the German and listen to it and listen to it. And then there's a point that after, I don't know how many hours of listening to it, there's a point where it kind of sinks in and you can discern the nuances and go there. But you can't, for instance, what's different about it is that you can't improvise. You just live or die by those lines. You can't get on set and say, oh, well, let me pick up this glass and, have a swig of water and say this water's warm in German and then put it down and carry on with the dialogue. There's none of that. You're so locked into the German or into this foreign language that in that sense, it's kind of inhibiting because you don't have freedom in it. You have freedom in that you know what you know, but you can't fuck around and say other stuff because you just don't know what you're saying. So in that sense, it's kind of intimidating because it's nice to feel free, and to be able to ad lib stuff. Sometimes they cut that out. And sometimes there's a little gem, that they use. So, yeah, but it was a fun experience. I hope to work with Phil again. He's an interesting dude, and being a writer-director, I know he's busy with the next one, so we'll see.
Well, I think it was kind of interesting that you mentioned the idea of caricature, because there's obviously, when you're playing a Nazi, there's probably a tendency or a possibility of going into character with the characters that evil. But at the same time, you want to find the humanity. So how do you walk the line between definitely evil, but once again, he's a person. I mean, he technically is. So how do you walk that careful line?
In this case I was just emphatic that I was just going to play somebody that had no bullshit about him and that just believed in this ideology, just absolutely believed that the German race is superior. End of story. Point. That's there's no discussion. There's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to argue about. This is the way it is, and this is the way it should be. And in a sense, it's sort of freeing to have that point of view as we're all kind of filled with self-doubt, and is this the right choice or that the right choice in our daily lives? But a guy like this, he has no doubt, like what's going to happen the next 2 minutes, what's going to happen in 15 minutes, and what he thinks about it, So it's the sort of way in was to play a man that has no doubts about anything.
So obviously a lot of the story centers around Will Spaulding, who's the protagonist, who's chasing after a revenge mission against Colonel Bach. So is Colonel Bach even aware that he's being chased by Spaulding, and how does he feel about this pursuit?
No, he does not. He runs into him again 10 years later in South America when Spaulding hunts him down, so to speak. And then there's a really cool scene towards the end of the movie where they come face to face, and Bach then, we see some of the character development, because Bach then has this conversation with him and says, you think I just killed your friends arbitrarily and in that field? No, I didn't. I had to kill your friends, because if I didn't kill your friends, they would get on another plane and they would bomb my friends. So why are you crying like a little bitch? What is this about? Get it together. So he's facing this guy with a gun, and he's like, no, you're wrong, man. You completely thinking about this wrong. We're both just soldiers and we do what we do. And I killed your guys, but if I didn't kill your guys, they'd kill my guys. So what the fuck are you doing here? It's a great speech. It's like a half a page speech that I had. And once again, it's that thing of a guy that has no doubt, even in the face of death. He knows he's going to get shot, but he's like, fuck you. What are you doing here? You're stupid. Go home.
There's some serious balls on this guy.
Yeah. No, this guy has got balls of steel. No doubt.
Well, the cast on Condors Nest is really impressive. You got Michael Ironside, you got Bruce Davison. I mean, Jorge Garcia. What's it like to perform with these guys, and how does working together with that kind of cast bring up everyone's game?
Oh, it's amazing, man. You see these guys, because we're all in the room together, around a table, and you'll see little nuances that people do in different takes, whether the camera's on you or on them. And it's just nice. It's just nice to work with professionals, I must say. I mean, I like working with young actors too, sometimes a little unsure of themselves, and you talk them off a ledge, or you help them get to a place. But boy, is it nice just to sit opposite people that have been there and done that, and just watch them do their thing. It's cool, man. That's really cool.
That's absolutely awesome. So are you in scenes with Mr. Ironside and Mr. Davison as well?
No, not with Ironside, but I worked with him about 10 years ago in some little movie in Texas. We did a horror movie together there, and I didn't have scenes with him either in that, but we have that's the cool thing about the business. You all have mutual friends that they know, and so it was nice to talk to them. But on this one I didn't, but with Bruce I did, and the rest of the guys, we were all in a room together for a couple of days for the sort of Nazi table scenes, conference scenes. And so it was nice to see everybody and hear what they're doing and what's carrying on, and who's sober and who's drunk, who's fallen off the wagon, and what's going on in people's lives and what's next and all that stuff, so it's always nice.
So when and where can our listeners find Condors Nest?
It's going to be available tomorrow, Friday. Today's Thursday. It's going to be available tomorrow theatrically in, I think, the big cities only. And then it'll be available on streaming. So I'm not sure which platforms exactly, but I know it's going to be available on streaming as well. And it's just an old-fashioned, fun Second World War movie. There's actually a hell of a lot of humor. I remember when I watched it the first time, I was surprised by how much humor there was in the film, even coming from some of the Nazi characters. So it'll be interesting to see how it's received. I think the movie's very nice, and people are going to enjoy it just as a pure entertainment. It's definitely something different. It's like an old-fashioned throwback, but there's also something different about it and unique.
Well, Condors Nest sounds absolutely awesome. I can't wait to see it. So, Mr. Vosloo, it's been an absolute honor. My wife is very jealous, so thank you so much.
Cool, man. Cool. Enjoy it. Watch it and let us know what you think. Thank you. Thanks. Ciao. Bye-bye.